clear this is a full-scale invasion.
Rubber bullets, helicopters, armored vehicles.
You are tuning into Revolution News Link, linking information, experience, revolutionaries, and making it mainstream. I'm your guy, John Tell. Please hit the like button and share this stream. Follow us on all our platforms, Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, now also Spotify. And so here's what's on the table for y'all. Over the first 3 months of the year, Chevron reported $6.3 billion in profits, and ExxonMobil reported $5.5 billion in profits. Antonio Guterres has criticized how fossil fuel companies are responding to the war. In a tweet, he said fossil fuel interests are now cynically using the war on Ukraine to try to lock in a high carbon future. A shift to renewables is crucial to mending our broken global energy mix and offering hope to millions suffering climate impacts today, he said. A month after a new union started by Amazon warehouse workers became the first to win a U.S. election in the company's history, workers at a nearby Amazon facility voted against unionizing with the same grassroots organization. Workers at an Amazon package sort center known as LDJ5 voted 618 to 380 against unionizing with the Amazon Labor Union, otherwise known as ALU, a union founded last year by fired Amazon worker Christopher Smalls and several colleagues. A victory at LDJ5 would have given the union the right to negotiate a collective bargaining agreement with Amazon at 2 key warehouses that play separate but complementary roles in serving Amazon customers in the critical New York City metro area. The combination could have given organizers more leverage in contract negotiations with Amazon, and so that advantage looks kind of gone for the moment. Harry Shakabuna Marshall has been serving an unconstitutional sentence of life without parole since 1988. That was imposed when he was still a child of 17. Although Shakabuna was sentenced to die in prison and has spent more than 27 years incarcerated, recent decisions in the U.S. Supreme Court provide an opportunity for him to be resentenced and eventually released from prison. In 2012, the U.S. Supreme Court held mandatory life without parole sentences unconstitutional when imposed on children in the case of Miller versus Alabama. In the 2016 case of Montgomery versus Louisiana, the court held that in its decision in Miller applies retroactively to convictions that have long since been final, such as in Shakabuna's case. This means that Shakabuna is entitled to be resentenced. While he has been serving time in prison, Shakabuna has held the positions of Vice President of the PA Lifers Association, Committee Chairperson of the NAACP Greater Graterford Branch, President of the Paraprofessional Law Clinic at SCI Graterford, and Secretary of the Regis Betterment Organization at SCI Mahanoy. He is also the founder or co-founder of several organizations that are groups that are located outside of prison walls, namely Families United, Families of Prisoners, and Committees Union, and the Human Rights Coalition. He is the co-founder and editor of The Movement magazine, a human rights advocacy publication with subscribers nationwide. It serves as a tool for public awareness and connects prisoners to the outside world. Shakabuna does popular radio commentary on social political issues for prison radio and submits written commentary articles for the Socialist Viewpoint magazine, San Francisco Bayview newspaper, and Workers' World. Pennsylvania is the world leader in sentencing children to die in prison, with more than 500 people serving unconstitutional sentences. Philadelphia County, where Shakabuna is from, has sentenced more than 300 children to die in prison. No other country on the planet sentences children to die in prison. The Abolitionist Law Center is currently pursuing Shakabuna's right to an individualized sentencing hearing under the Miller and Montgomery cases with an aim to ensure the earliest possible return home. Folks are asking that the courtroom be packed tomorrow, May 4th, in Philadelphia. If you check the Facebook page for the Leon Block Independent Media, you will find memes and pictures and information about where you can get to the courtroom and pack it tomorrow, again in Philadelphia. In New York, charges have been dismissed against two longtime peace activists who were arrested in 2019 for blocking the entrance to Hancock Air Force Base to protest the U.S. drone war program. Over the past 13 years, about 150 peace activists have been arrested in actions outside the base as part of a campaign organized by the Upstate Drone Action Coalition. New government data shows the FBI conducted at least 3.4 million searches of private electronic data from Americans last year without a warrant. That's triple the number from the previous year. The Office of the Director of National Intelligence released the data Friday, which showed how many times the FBI submitted queries to a database of emails, texts, and other electronic domestic communications. It is unclear how many individuals were spied on. In Florida, 3 prison guards have been charged with the murder for the beating death of a handcuffed man who was being moved from a prison's mental health unit. Authorities accused the guards of beating the man, but he was in handcuffs and being compliant. In a statement, the Florida Department of Law Enforcement said, quote, "The inmate was beaten so badly he had to be carried to the transport van," end quote. The Biden administration has sued the state of Alabama, seeking to block a new law barring gender-affirming medicine for transgender youth while making it a felony to provide such care. In a court filing on Friday, the Justice Department argues the ban violates the 14th Amendment to the U.S. Constitution, which guarantees equal protection under the law. It is the first time the administration has sued to stop state restrictions on gender-affirming care, and comes as Republican-controlled state legislatures are set to break records for the number of new anti-LGBTQIA+ bills introduced across the United States. In the state of Georgia, prosecutors in Fulton County are going to move ahead with convening a special grand jury to consider whether former President Donald Trump should be criminally charged for his efforts to pressure Georgia's Secretary of State and other officials to overturn the 2020 election. Jury selection has begun. In New York, a grand jury looking into Trump's business practices has wrapped up without bringing charges against him. An exclusive footage that was obtained by AJ Plus, a group of Americans were filmed installing wiring and a fence around the land just outside the Salem family home in occupied East Jerusalem. The incident happened just days after the family was served an eviction notice by quote-unquote settlers who are linked to U.S. charities. Check out the YouTube special report that AJ Plus posts on their channel. They do pretty great work. And some of this news comes from Democracy Now! Go to democracynow.org or Democracy Now! On YouTube for more information and news. We will be right back after this. In Sri Lanka, opposition parties ended a week-long march to the capital, Colombo, on May Day, with thousands of protesters demanding relief from a devastating economic crisis and calling on President Gotabaya Rajapaksa to resign. For months, Sri Lanka has faced dire shortages of food, fuel, and medicine amid mounting foreign debt and government corruption. On Friday, President Rajapaksa agreed to remove his older brother as prime minister as part of a plan to form an interim government made up of all parties in parliament. The leader of Sri Lanka's main opposition party rejected the plan as insufficient. He said, quote, "The country can't be rescued by making deals with thieves. I would like to tell you all that we have taken a decision not to make any deals with a government of thieves and their partners." International Workers' Day rose from industrial action and union-backed protests that started in America when unions organized an unsuccessful struggle for an 8-hour workday, leading to a national strike on May 1st, 1886. Every year that followed, massive union rallies would be held across the world on May 1st, but it took the bargaining power from the First World War to force the government to introduce 8-hour workdays. Millions of protesters took to the streets of cities and towns around the world Sunday, May 1st, to mark May Day, or International Workers' Day. In France, tens of thousands marched through Paris, warning the newly re-elected President Emmanuel Macron against rolling back workers' rights. Unions say they're prepared to strike if Macron presses against with plans to slash unemployment and pension benefits while raising the age of retirement from 62 to 65. A protester taking to the streets says, quote, "Macron has just been reelected, but he was reelected to stop the far right. Yes, but not for his program. And so today I think it is important to show Macron and the rest of the political world that we are ready to protest, to defend our social rights, defend what we stand for, defend minorities, defend minimum wages, retirement at age 60, and many other things." End quote. In Turkey, police arrested more than 160 people on Sunday after protesters ignored a ban on protest in Istanbul's main Taksim Square. In Chile, 3 people were wounded by gunfire at a rally in the capital Santiago after vigilante street vendors opened fire on May Day protesters. And thousands marched to celebrate a 12.5 increase in the minimum wage approved by the newly elected government of Socialist President Gabriel Boric. In Buenos Aires, thousands of protesters marched to demand a reversal of austerity measures Argentina recently agreed to in exchange for a bailout from the International Monetary Fund. Hundreds of May Day protesters marched in Milwaukee, Wisconsin in support of immigrant workers. Protesters organized 2 Days Without Latinx and Immigrants, calling on Republican lawmakers to stop blocking immigration reform and demanding President Biden use his executive powers to protect all immigrants. Led by the slogan, Cuba Works and Lives, Havana's 2022 May Day Parade was attended by more than 700,000 workers and students from across Havana, demonstrating both a joyful celebration and triumphant victory of the Cuban Revolution. More than 5.5 million people celebrated throughout Cuba on May 1st in their respective provinces for a total of 6 million people at events over the weekend. It is a special celebration because of the parade's cancellation the last 2 years due to the COVID-19 restrictions. Cuba's May Day Parade is historically the largest in the world, and this year it came back with a roar in one of the largest turnouts seen in years. Intense fuel shortages due to the U.S. blockade make transportation difficult. Even so, people from all provinces of Cuba traveled to take part in this historic International Workers' Day celebration. In Essex County, New Jersey, hundreds of essential and excluded immigrant workers planned to take to the streets of downtown Newark, and they did, to demand citizenship, COVID relief, and job protections. Members of several advocacy groups were present, including Make the Road New Jersey, American Friends Service Committee, Latina Civic, NJCU Dreamers, New Jersey Working Families Party, North New Jersey Democratic Socialists of America, SEIU 32BJ, and Undocu Rutgers. Police and protesters clashed in Turkey and France during May Day rallies on Sunday, as tens of thousands marched across the world in support of workers' rights. Turkish riot police detained scores of demonstrators in Istanbul, pinning some of them to the ground and dragging them away from the rally, which the governor's office said was unauthorized. As rallies in Paris quickly turned violent as youth clashed with police on the sidelines and buildings were vandalized, though unions said more than 200,000 people joined demonstrators. In Istanbul. Pinning some of them to the ground and dragging them away from the rally, which the governor's office said was unauthorized. And as rallies in Paris quickly turned violent, as youths clashed with police on the sidelines and buildings were vandalized, though unions said more than 200,000 people joined demonstrations across France and most were peaceful. Around 200,000 Palestinian worshippers gathered at the Al-Aqsa Mosque in occupied East Jerusalem to mark Eid. Over the past month, Israeli authorities have repeatedly raided the mosque. At least 42 Palestinians were injured on Friday. Meanwhile, Israel has conducted a number of raids in the occupied West Bank after the killing of a guard at an illegal Jewish settlement. The Al-Aqsa Martyrs Brigade claimed responsibility for the shooting. 2 suspects were arrested, and Israeli authorities also fatally shot a young Palestinian man in the back during a raid in the West Bank town of Azun. The Main Line is home to Philadelphia's old money suburbs, where American royalty like the Pews and the Montgomerys once lived. Stretching from Overbrook to Paoli along the historic Pennsylvania Railroad, the place today is home to at least 11 country clubs, an annual horse show, and some of the best public schools in the country. Immortalized in movies like The Philadelphia Story and Grease, the main line helped to shape what we think of when we imagine the suburbs. Betty Draper, the quintessential American housewife of Mad Men, grew up in Lower Merion. And the advantages that accrued to the mostly white people in this area, both in the movies and in real life, were never intended for black folks. In Haverford Township, where black people make up just 3% of the population, you can practically feel the history looming. From the redlining practices lenders used as early suburbs grew, to agreements that banned people of color from purchasing certain homes, America's suburban landscape can't be severed from its racist roots, nor can the yawning wealth gap between Black Americans and white Americans. That is taken from an article from The Inquirer, a local Philadelphia region newspaper that really speaks to, again, the quintessential American suburbs. Really was experimented with, and really the precedent was set from the Philadelphia suburbs. There are links in the comments section for you to check out, and more will be posted as we go along with more news. Officer fired over racist conversation, appeals termination to judge, and a new video discovered. That article will be in the comments. Also, a link to Free Shakabuna, so that you can get more information on that. Link to an Instagram from Prison Radio. That is, the radio station that he is a part of. For Patrick Lyoya, the American dream became the American nightmare. Patrick Lyoya had just moved into a place of his own, a home with 3 bedrooms. He proudly told those close to him he invited friends to drop by for a barbecue and his mom to stay overnight. At 26, he told his dad he was ready to settle down. The Lyoya family had come a long way in search of stability after fleeing from violence in the war-torn Democratic Republic of Congo. They spent more than a decade in a refugee camp in Malawi. In 2014, they won entry to the United States and landed in Western Michigan, where Peter and Dorcas Lyoya worked odd jobs and shared a modest apartment with their 6 children. Patrick, the couple's oldest son, had a full-time job as a factory worker at a vehicle manufacturing plant in Grand Rapids. For an interview at their apartment in Lansing, where photographs of Patrick hung on the walls, mourners crowded the living room and Congolese meals simmered on the stove. Patrick Lyoya mentioned it again. Quote, when we came here to the US, we knew that we ran away from war and violence, and we came here to America to a safe haven, he said. Through Israel Siku, who has been acting as an interpreter for the family, quote, what is surprising and astonishing is that I lost my son here in America. Officer fired over racist conversation appeals termination to the judge. A new video has been discovered. You can find that article in the comments, along with many other articles in the comments as well, like the article about Black families that were blocked from buying mainline homes and that shaped America's suburbs. You definitely want to check that article out. It really speaks to the issues of redlining and the effects. Again, set the Philadelphia suburbs set the precedent of that. Black farmers lost $326 billion worth of land in the 20th century, according to a study. Link to the article is in the comments as well. Diversity training is unpopular because it doesn't work, but companies could change that. A commentary article you can also find in the comments. DC Elementary School gives 4-year-old books to report racist family members. Really interesting article you should check out. Don't forget, you can check out our Twitter with lots of information and retweets going on. For example, Palestinian activist Issa Amro was detained by Israeli occupation forces in Hebron for talking to his camera about apartheid. Again, our Twitter is always active, retweeting lots of information worldwide, in particular, lots of information concerning Palestine and the war on Palestine. You can find more articles in our comment section on our Facebook page, the Leon Block Independent Media. And you can also listen to the stream currently on Twitter and YouTube. All of your support means a lot, but we can't do it without you. To help us grow and to, keep us going, consider donating to the Leon Block. Links are at the bottom of the screen. Every dollar goes a long way. If you have stories that need to be exposed or events that need shared, please email us at theleonblock@gmail.com. Follow us on social media. Facebook, the Leon Block Independent Media, Twitter, the Leon Block 1, YouTube, the Leon Block channel, Instagram, the Leon Block _official. Just search the Leon Block. Also on Spotify as well. Well, that is all the news we have for the moment. Stay tuned for more. This is a Revolution News Link. Have a good one, y'all.